Cause, a principle, aim, or movement that because of a deep commitment, one is prepared to defend or advocate. Karibu. Karibu is a Kiswahili word that means welcome. Welcome, you found yourself in a peaceful place, a place where you can grow and develop, and we hope grow and develop to your fullest potential. This is a podcast that we hope will expand your mind and raise your consciousness. Welcome to The Cause, conversations on music, history, and democracy. Welcome to The Cause, conversations on music, history, and democracy, where we talk about past and present great causes that are shaping the world we live in and the world we want to build. I'm your host, Reiland Rabaka. Today's topic is something fundamental: food. But not just food justice. We're going to unpack what food justice is, how it differs from food security, why our current food system is broken, and what people are doing to change it. We'll hear definitions, real-life examples, and movement strategies. Whether you've never heard of food justice or you're deep in the work, this episode is for you. So grab a cup of something hot or cold and sit back, sip, and listen with an open heart and an open mind. Again, welcome to The Cause. For me, this episode was really important because it's no secret I grew up in the public housing projects, and food was, it was really something that was a constant preoccupation. It was something that, the lack of food, rather, was really something that, it could just, it's really something else to think about growing up in a society where there is such abundance, so much so that they actually throw away lots of food every day. They discard it. So if you can't sell it, they actually throw it away instead of helping to feed people. I think even as a child, I realized that there was something wrong about that. And especially as I was there, my stomach growling, my eyes big, and searching around rooms for something to eat, and sometime having to sit in the humiliation of watching other people eat and enjoy themselves and throw away half of their meals. It just seemed like something really strange. And so this show is for all the folks who are out there who are hungry, who have been hungry. And I'm saying that especially in an abundant society, a society with such, not simply abundance, but dare I say opulence in our society. This show is also for all of those places I travel all around the global South, and all the folks I see who are malnourished, who are not getting enough to eat. I think here we often take it for granted, that everybody's getting 3 square meals a day. This is a show that seeks to turn some attention on communities that are often rendered invisible when we start talking about diet, nutrition, food justice even. And so, yeah, this is one of my great causes. Let's get into it. Food justice on The Cause podcast. The very first thing that we need to do is start with a very basic but powerful question. What is food justice? Simple, right? What is food justice? At its core, food justice is the idea that access to healthy, affordable, culturally appropriate food is a human right, not a privilege. But it doesn't stop there. If we're going to really, really talk about food justice, we need to acknowledge that food justice is also a framework and a movement that addresses the systemic issues that determine who gets to eat well and who doesn't. These issues include racial and economic inequality, corporate control over agriculture, labor exploitation, environmental destruction, urban planning and land use, and the erasure of indigenous and cultural food traditions. In short, food justice isn't just about food, it's about power, it's about history, and it's about survival. Food justice is communities exercising their right to grow, sell, and eat healthy food. Now, I'm really into human rights. So I believe that a basic human right is people's access to food, their right to grow, sell, and eat healthy food. This is something I believe maybe many people take for granted. On this show, right here, right now, we're going to turn a spotlight on food justice. All right, so going back to the point that food justice is a framework and a movement, it's important then for us to explore that movement part. We just sort of laid out a bit of the framework, but food justice as a movement. The food justice movement emerged in the late 20th century in response to a growing realization, and that is that mainstream environmental and food movements often ignored race and class. I would also throw off in there sexuality. Yeah. So this is an intersectional analysis, an intersectional conversation about the food justice movement. Early voices in food justice came from Black, brown, and indigenous communities who were dealing with a number of different issues. Number one, lack of grocery stores in their neighborhoods. Something as simple as having a neighborhood grocery store. Number two, exposure to pesticides in farm work. Number three, land theft and forced migration. And number four, the last point, the loss of cultural food ways. I think that sometimes people act like food and cuisine and these kinds of things just fell out of the sky, but this whole notion of cultural food ways is really, really important. The cultural aspects of food. We got to think very deeply about that, the cultural aspects of food. This movement, the food justice movement, owes a great deal to the environmental justice movement of the 1980s and to Black, as in African American, agricultural traditions that long resisted plantation capitalism. Hear me. From Fannie Lou Hamer's Freedom Farm Cooperative in the 1970s to today's urban gardens in Detroit, Oakland, and Chicago. This has always been about survival and self-determination. This is going to be key. And I want you to sort of think about what I'm saying here. Someone like Fannie Lou Hamer. So beyond her incredible contributions to the civil rights movement, Fannie Lou Hamer had Freedom Farm Cooperative. Her Freedom Farm Cooperative was transformational. So a key figure in the food justice movement was also one of the most iconic civil rights, social justice soldiers ever, Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer.
We finally succeeded in getting 40 acres of land. And this land is all organized and founded in 59 It's called Freedom Farms Cooperative. Last summer we fed a lot of people there. And we also have about 58 people that's living in decent homes. So now what we plan to do is to grow our own vegetables, is to grow our own cattle, and to grow our own pork, and have 100 houses in that area.
Again, as I said, this movement, it's about survival and self-determination. And who better embodies survival and self-determination and social justice than Fannie Lou Hamer? So now that we have a sense of food justice as a framework and then food justice as a movement, it's important for us now to really sort of identify the key aspects and the core principles of food justice. And so there are several of them, and let's just sort of walk through them. Number one, equity and access. Many communities, especially Black, brown, indigenous, and low-income communities, don't have access to fresh and healthy food. These areas are sometimes called food deserts, but many now prefer the term food apartheid to emphasize that these are not natural conditions, but the result of policy and planning. So it's not like it just happened naturally. Oh no, this is the result of policy and planning. Second core principle, labor rights. Food justice also means justice for people who grow and process our food. Many are farm workers, often undocumented, working in unsafe conditions for low pay. Movements like the Coalition of Imokali Workers have fought for better wages and protections. So again, that's where the struggle against and the criminalization of immigration is connected to food justice, right? Labor rights, when we all know that a lot of the hardest working people in the United States of America are often undocumented. Number three, the third core principle, land ownership and sovereignty. Who owns the land matters. Food justice supports land back movements, urban farming, and Black agrarianism. It seeks to restore land to those who've been excluded from it. Number four, cultural and culinary traditions. Food justice respects diverse food cultures and traditions. It means allowing communities to grow and eat what's meaningful to them, not what's imposed by nutritionists, corporations, or nonprofits. I hope you can hear what I'm saying. This emphasis on culture and culinary traditions. There is a nexus, there is a connection there that often goes unexplored by well-meaning food justice advocates. This means allowing communities to grow and eat what's meaningful, what's important to them, what is sacred to them, their culture, their history, their tradition, and not what's imposed by nutritionists, corporations, and nonprofits. The fifth and the final core principle of food justice is connected to our previous episode, environmental justice. That is the fifth core principle of food justice. The industrial food system pollutes soil, air, and water. I'm going to go back and get that. I'm going to repeat it because somebody ain't listening like they were supposed to had been listening. The industrial food system. Sometimes we even call it the food industrial complex. The food industrial complex pollutes soil, air, and water. Food justice calls for sustainable, regenerative practices, especially those rooted in indigenous knowledge. So look at this emphasis on indigeneity within an intersectional conception of food justice and the food justice movement. It is linked to indigenous rights struggles and indigeneity and indigenous knowledge, indigenous epistemologies. This is a really, really important point that I hope does not get lost in the mix. All right, so now it's important for us to clear up the confusion that many folks have between food justice and food security. I find more people who are fluent or they're more knowledgeable when it comes to food security than this emphasis on justice. And that goes back to our conception of radical democracy, the radical democracy episode where we talk about no justice, no peace. So this emphasis on justice, on fairness, I believe is really, really important here to understand this difference. So let's get right into it. Here's the question we hear often. What's the difference between food security and food justice? Let's break it down. I'm going to speak slowly and clearly for you because what I want to do is to clear up the confusion that is often surrounding these terms, food security and food justice. Food security means having enough food to eat. Food justice means transforming the systems that cause food insecurity in the first place. Let's break it down. Food security can be met through charity, food banks, school lunches, government aid. Food justice challenges the why behind hunger. Why are some communities overfed and undernourished while others are starving? That's a key question. Food justice demands structural change. It says we need to control our food systems and not just survive them. Food security is a bandage. Food justice is a cure. So here's where I want to move from some of the lofty ideas that might appear or might seem to be abstract for many of my listeners. And I like to concretize things. I like to translate ideas into action. I'd like to move from abstraction to a kind of concretization, if I can use a $25 word for you, as I'm recording here at the University of Colorado, Boulder. Let me use some of the terminology for you. But anyway, we want to move from abstraction into something concrete. And so I'm always on the Cause podcast and in our center, the Center for African and African American Studies at the University of Colorado, Boulder, we like to break things down. We like to come with some real world examples of the great causes that we are talking about. And so in that vein, let's look at some case studies and community solutions. Here are a few inspiring examples of food justice in action. The first example, the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. So in a city hit hard by economic collapse, this network runs D-Town Farm. I said D-Town Farm. It advocates for policy change and supports food sovereignty for Black Detroiters. So this is really, really key here, a key example of a grassroots community organization combating food insecurity and advocating for food justice. Our next example is going to be Soul Fire Farm in upstate New York. This is a Black and brown-led farm committed to ending food apartheid. They train farmers, heal the land, and speak truth to power. Powerful example, Soul Fire Farm in upstate New York. And my last example, LA's South Central Farm, and in particular, Ron Finley. So Ron Finley became famous for planting food on public land in South Central Los Angeles.
Just like 26.5 million other Americans, I live in a food desert. South Central Los Angeles, home of the drive-through and the drive-by. Funny thing is, the drive-throughs are killing more people than the drive-by. People are dying from curable diseases in South Central Los Angeles. Food is the problem, and food is the solution. Plus, I got tired of driving 45 minutes round trip to get an apple that wasn't impregnated with pesticides. So what I did, I planted a food forest in front of my house.
His motto, I'm going to say it slow. Growing your own food is like printing your own money. So now I just want you to think about that. I want you to think about how many people in our society and in our communities right now who don't know how to grow food. See, that's a disconnect. That is a rupture of our relationships with our ancestral cultures, our ancestral wisdoms, indigenous knowledges. So that's a tricky situation because what that does, it leaves so many of us at the mercy of the food industry as it is right now. So look at this connection then in terms of the food justice movement, at least as I understand it, this connection between farming and food justice, right? And farm workers' rights and food justice. There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of interconnection here that's really, really important. Each of these projects, right? So we're talking about Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, Soul Fire Farm in upstate New York, and LA's South Central Farm and Ron Finley. Each of these projects show that food justice is not just a theory. It's being practiced every day by people reclaiming power over their lives. And if there's one thing, one great cause that we are committed to, it's exploring the most marginalized people's lives and struggle. Some folks are struggling with what I was grappling with in childhood, just trying to get something to eat. You know, some nights my stomach would growl so loud it would wake me up. I haven't forgotten that. That's trauma, and I continue to carry that trauma, and I believe this podcast is healing. This is one of the ways I'm really sort of addressing that food insecurity that I grew up with, that food injustice that I experienced during childhood. So just being able to talk freely and openly about it, there's something healing here. There's something healing about this particular episode. And I hope some of what I'm saying is healing, is therapeutic for people who may be experiencing food insecurity and issues around food injustice. So here's that moment of radical honesty and radical vulnerability, that this is a topic that is very near and dear to my own life and my own struggles.
Are you ready to dive deep into the rich histories, cultures, and arts of Africa and the African diaspora? At the Center for African and African American Studies, affectionately known as The Cause, we're leading the way in research, arts, and student engagement at the University of Colorado, Boulder. The Cause is more than just a research center. It's a space where students, faculty, artists, allies, and activists come together to explore African and African American experiences, from historical legacies to modern cultural expressions. And at the heart of it all, our students, playing a central role in everything we do. They're the future of this important cultural legacy, working side by side with faculty on groundbreaking projects and events that impact not just the campus, but the community and wider world. Research projects and events that impact not just our beloved CU campus, but the community and world at large.
Our mission? To foster academic excellence, social responsibility, and artistic expression, with programs that inspire leadership and advocacy for social justice. Whether you're interested in visual arts, music, or deepening your understanding of African American culture, The Cause is the place for you.
But we can't do it alone. The Cause relies on the generous support of our community to continue making a difference. By giving to the Center for African and African American Studies, you help us expand research, create opportunities for artists, support our students, and drive meaningful social change. And right now, your gift will go even further. All donations will be matched by CU Boulder Chancellor Justin Swartz for up to $1 million or until May 30th, 2026. To make your impact today, visit colorado.edu/center/cause and click on Support the Cause. Every contribution, large or small, brings us closer to a future of unity, knowledge, and transformation.
So, if you're looking for a community where history, culture, and creativity converge, visit the Center for African and African American Studies at CU Boulder. Come join The Cause and be a part of a movement for unity, knowledge, and social change.
Learn more and give today at colorado.edu/center/cause. We can't wait to welcome you to The Cause.
This is where we need to keep it real. We need to break this down a bit further, this discourse on food justice. We need to acknowledge that even though I just rattled off these incredible examples, 3 key concrete examples, a lot of what we're talking about in terms of food justice, a lot of we need to be honest, this work isn't easy. It's incredibly difficult, hard work. Consciousness raising is hard work. And that's why there's so many, folks who sort of go along to get along in our society, because it really requires folks to dig deep, to move beyond the surface and to go really deep. And I don't know, sometimes we live in a society, we live in a world where novelty is celebrated, superficiality is celebrated. And so this hard work, the hard work of fighting for food justice, there are a lot of barriers. I need to be honest with you. I need to be able to keep it real with you. And some of those barriers include lack of funding for grassroots initiatives. This is being hit really hard right now in the society that we're living in, the cutting of a lot of funding for grassroots initiatives. The second point, corporate consolidation of agriculture and grocery stores. So some people, we don't think about it when we go to the health food store, we go to a grocery store, we don't think that's a corporation. Some folks are thinking of America more as a business, more of a corporation. They're thinking of America more as a corporation than a country. Number 3, racist zoning laws and land theft. So the racial dimensions of zoning laws and land theft. That's a term that we don't even hear very much. But, again, this whole country, we got a lot of stuff that's going on in the country that has been involving land theft, centuries of it, long standing land theft. And it's a conversation that most people, most polite people, quote unquote, polite, don't want to have. They don't want to talk about land theft. So again, the centrality, the importance of land comes back once again. As I said before, land matters. Number 4, major barrier. climate change and ecological devastation. Really, really key. And this last major barrier that we really need to get out there, nonprofits that co-opt the language of food justice without practicing its principles. I'm going to say that one more time. And if, as Bob Marley say, if the cap fit, let them wear it. The fifth barrier, nonprofits that co-opt the language of food justice without practicing its principles. There's so much that could be said about that last point because I feel like people know how to say the pretty words that sound progressive, they sound liberal, they sound good. But what about practicing the principles? This is where we talk about responsibility and accountability. I could even throw off in there a big word like integrity. Nonprofits that co-opt the language of food justice without practicing its principles. Y'all have heard me say that about the concept of the beloved community. We have a lot of people, they're running around saying it, beloved community, but they're not practicing its principles. Because the real beloved community is predicated on a kind of radical inclusivity. Everybody is included and nobody is excluded. Wow. But let me get back to food justice up in this studio today. Food justice work is often underfunded, under-resourced, and undervalued, even though it's foundational to liberation. I repeat, food justice is foundational to liberation. How you gonna have a liberation movement and the folk are eating undernourished food? In fact, I wouldn't even call it food. I call it food stuff. They're eating food-like stuff. It's a lot of synthetic stuff. Really, really important for us to make some key distinctions here between actual food and this synthetic stuff that they pushing on a lot of people, and it has dire consequences for both physical and mental health. Food stuff, years and years, decades of consuming food stuff as opposed to actual food. But I better ease off this right now. You know what? I changed my mind. Let's go into it. This is where intersectionality comes into the discourse on food justice and the food justice movement. I am a radical intersectionalist. In case you didn't know, that's what's up. That's a key part of my identity, right? Radical intersectionality. Here we go. Here's the thing. Food justice intersects, insofar as I'm concerned, with everything. Health justice, poor diets contribute to chronic diseases, especially in marginalized communities. So again, here's the theme. I'm saying if we look at food justice intersectionally, it actually intersects with everything. First point was health justice. Next point, education. Hungry kids can't learn. I'm going to repeat that. I hope they can hear this in DPS, in Boulder Valley School District. When I said DPS, I meant Denver Public Schools. Hungry kids can't learn. I was one of those hungry kids. I had great difficulty paying attention. I was so hungry. So that second point was education. Third point, housing justice. Food and housing insecurity often go hand in hand. Fourth point, climate justice. Industrial farming is a leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions. So this is where, again, the conversation on food justice is connected to the conversation on climate justice, on environmental justice. And I just said, I'm going to repeat it because somebody they wasn't paying attention like they were supposed to have been. Industrial farming is a leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions. Last but certainly not least, gender justice. Women, especially BIPOC women, are often the frontline caregivers feeding communities. When I think about my own childhood, it was my grandmothers and my mother, my aunties, and them, who really made sure I had fruit and vegetables. My grandmothers, both of them were incredible gardeners. That changed my life to dig my hands deep in the rich red dirt, in the soil, and to plant seeds, to plant things and to cultivate, to nurture it and to watch it grow. I'm afraid that there's so many beautiful children in our communities who that's not going to transfer to them. Gardening, the importance of gardening and farming, right? Basic agricultural epistemology, that means agricultural knowledge, is going to be lost. We've got to rescue and reclaim it. We've got to share it as widely as we possibly can. The importance of gardening, the importance of farming. If we say that land matters, one of the key reasons that land matters is for farming and gardening. Now we've reached the point where we need to bring all of this home. We need to really sort of give some practical practices, some practical advice here on how folks can get involved. Because I would like to think anybody listening to a podcast called The Cause Podcast, they must be ready for some action. Not just the ideas, but what about translating our ideas into action? How to get folks involved? Well, you don't need to be a farmer or an organizer to support food justice. Here are some ways that you can get involved, and I mean right here, right now. Number one, support local farmers, especially BIPOC, women, and queer-led farms. They are out there. In fact, many of them are throughout Boulder County and the great state of Colorado. Okay? So support local farmers, especially BIPOC-led, women-led, and queer-led farms. Donate to grassroots food justice organizations. It's really, really important. Donating, doing charitable work, giving back. If you can give, please give. Volunteer at a community garden or food co-op. We got them all around Boulder County, all throughout the Denver metropolitan area. We've got community gardens and food co-ops. Next point, learn about your local food system. Who controls it and who's harmed by it? So this whole notion of emphasizing that we should be practicing ongoing education. So when you get your degree, this is for all my students who are listening. What's up, y'all? For all my students who are listening, again, you've heard me say, when you get your degree, you've got to keep learning. You've got to keep studying, right? And whether you like it or not, life is going to keep testing you. You're going to stay a student of life. It's going to keep testing you. So long after you're going out of my class and you get your big time degree and you making your big salary somewhere, I'm encouraging you to keep listening and to keep learning. So the point here, learn about your local food system, who controls it and who is harmed by it. Those are key questions. Next point, advocate for policies that support food sovereignty, land access, and farm worker rights. Last one. And I'm trying to embody this with this episode of the podcast. Start conversations with friends and family about food apartheid and food justice. Ain't this an incredible conversation we're having, y'all? About food apartheid and food justice. No action is too small. You are a part of the ecosystem. Nobody is excluded. Everybody is included. I don't care who you are, how big your house or how small your studio apartment. I don't care if you got millions of dollars in your bank account or if you don't even have a bank account. I am talking to the beloved community. I'm trying to bring it into being with each episode of this podcast. And today, We're talking about food apartheid and food justice. All right, we've reached the part of the program that is called the poetic pause. The poetic pause. This is where we translate some of what we have been discussing throughout this episode into poetry. You know, poetry has a special, special place in my heart, in my mind, in my soul. It serves a therapeutic purpose for me, and it has since my childhood. I've been writing poetry, my mama says, since kindergarten. Yeah, and so this one is a reflection on some of what I shared a little bit about growing up under food apartheid, growing up with a great deal of food insecurity. And so this is a reflection. This is a poetic reflection about experiencing childhood malnutrition that continues to impact my adult health. Something I don't really talk very openly about, but I'm being vulnerable here on the Cause podcast with you all. So this is poetry that reflects some of what I feel and what I experienced in terms of not eating every day when I was a kid and a child, and being really excited to go to school because sometimes, you know, eating the free breakfast and the free lunch was the only meals I would be able to get. And so I don't know, I associated free lunch and school with being able to get something to eat. All right. I'm gonna try to keep it together. All right, this poem is called Childhood Trips to the Grocery Store. When I was a child, we were poor. I would go to the supermarket without a penny, a nickel, a dime in my little pocket. And I would look at the fresh fruits and vegetables. I would look at the perfectly placed and freshly polished fruits and vegetables, and I would fantasize about how they tasted. We mostly ate government-issued food where I grew up. None of the food was fresh. All of the food had a long shelf life, full of additives and preservatives. We ate what others refused to eat, and often we did not eat at all. So the government food was better than nothing. At least it was something. I still think about going to the supermarket when I was a child and staring at the fresh fruits and vegetables. I think part of the reason I am a vegetarian is because I'm still healing from the food insecurity of my childhood. I remember those childhood trips to the grocery store. Whew. Oh, well, food justice is a touchy topic. It's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, both the people that are eating and who are overfed and often undernourished, and those people who are not eating at all. This is a very touchy topic, but I think this is what the cause is about. It's about speaking truth to power. It's about turning some attention to issues that are often rendered invisible or erased. I think that's key to what this podcast is about. And if it's a classroom, this is a space where people can learn and love without being judged. And I'm simply seeking to raise my listeners' consciousness, to raise their consciousness, to raise their awareness of a key issue that is going on all throughout this country and indeed all throughout this world. And so this is a love letter to all of the hungry people here in Colorado, but also throughout this country and throughout the world. Wow, we have been on a food justice journey today, and it's time to close out, to wrap things up. And I just want to thank you for being courageous enough to be uncomfortable about the topic of food justice. So, I just want to close out by saying food justice isn't just about what's on your plate. It's about power. It's about dignity. It's about culture. And more than any of that, it is about caring. Do you care if people are hungry? If they're experiencing food apartheid, if they're experiencing food insecurity, do you care? As we've heard today, the fight for food justice is also a fight for racial justice. It is a fight for gender justice. It is a fight for economic justice and environmental healing. Thanks for listening to the Cause Podcast. If this episode moved you, challenged you, or inspired you, please share it. Rate us and send this episode to someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, eat well, live justly, and stay rooted. And remember, let's end hunger, not people, and not our planet. Y'all take care. Peace.
Thank you for joining us for the Cause Podcast with Dr. Reiland Rabaka. For your letters, questions, and suggestions regarding the podcast, email us, thecause@gmail.com. CAAAS. We may even read your letter on the air. The Cause Podcast with Dr. Reiland Rabaka is produced and edited by John Arnold and is a production of the Center for African and African American Studies, The Cause, at the University of Colorado Boulder. For more information, visit us online at colorado.edu/center/cause, CAAAS.
Class is in session, so come and get your lesson. Ooh, the Cause Podcast. I love that. Do you love that?